talk about pentatonics. Maybe you know the pentatonic shapes in all 5 positions. Maybe you've just learned the first position and you're facing that daunting challenge of learning all the rest of them. Well, if you know all of them already, I'm going to show you something that you might find very interesting that maybe you didn't notice before. If you've just learned the first one and are ready to learn all the rest, you're going to be pretty happy about what I'm going to show you. Because if you already know the first pentatonic shape, then you know all of them. Because there's only one shape. I'm going to say that again. If you know pentatonic shape number 1, you already know all of the pentatonic shapes. You just don't realize it. Because there's only one shape. Let me show you what I mean. I think we all pretty much learn the same way because everybody likes to teach it the same way. That we start with A minor pentatonic on the 5th fret, index finger, 5th fret on the low E string. And typically a teacher will say, okay, 5-8, 5-7, 5-7, 5-7, 5-8, 5-8, right? Calling out the numbers of the frets as you go through the entire shape. And you're only using those fret numbers because you happen to start on that A note because you're playing an A minor pentatonic. If you were starting on the 3rd fret, playing the G minor pentatonic, it will be 3-6, 3-5, 3-5, 3-5, 3-6, 3-6. If you were playing an F minor pentatonic, you'd start way up here on the 1st fret, 1-4, 1-3, 1-3, 1-3, 1-4, 1-4. So let's pretend that those are the numbers that matter, no matter where we play it. Because what I'm really interested in getting across to you is not which frets you're touching, but what are the spans between the frets. I call them fret spans, right? 1-4, that's a 4-fret span. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1-3, 1-3, 1-3, 1-4, 1-4. No matter where you play that pentatonic form 1, you're always going to do a 4-span, 3 3-spans, and then 2 4-spans. Okay? Makes sense? Shouldn't be a big surprise. Okay. Now, those 2 4-spans there, that very first one and that last one, are really the same. They're just 2 octaves apart because the low E string and the high E string are the same notes, just 2 octaves apart. If the guitar only had 5 strings, and in fact it only has 5 unique strings, right? Then the shape would consist of a 4-span, 3 3-spans, and 1 4-span, right? Because this extra one here is simply a copy of that one. Let me show you what I mean this way. Legos. This should look like the shape that I just played, right? Because we have from the 1 to the 4, and then 1 to 3, 1 to 3, 1 to 3, and then 1 to 4, and 1 to 4 again. Okay? So a 4-span, 3 3-spans, and then another 4-span, and then that 4-span at the bottom, which is really a copy of the top one. That's why I have it in red. All right, so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that bottom one off. So there we have the 5 unique strings and the fret spans that we play on each one in pentatonic position 1. By the way, if you're looking down on your own fretboard, it's actually going to look more like this, right? Which is kind of the same as what we just saw. And if you see it like in a book or in a PDF or something like that, they'll usually show it like this, where the nut is up here somewhere, right? And you're starting on a particular fret, and then you have the 6th string, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and then string number 1 where I removed it. Okay? So we'll come back to the Legos in a minute. So that pattern, a 4-span, 3 3-spans, and a 4-span, that doesn't just happen in form 1. Suppose we started, let's say on the 12th fret, on the A string, right? The 5th string. We have a 4-span, 3 3-spans. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Let's slide that last one up 1 fret. That sounds right. All right? That's the familiar A minor pentatonic pattern that your ear remembers. So what did we do? When we got to that B string, we slid up 1 fret towards the bridge. Okay? Now I'm saying we slid up. We slid up in tone. I'm sliding down the fretboard, especially because I have it angled like this, right? But you understand what I mean. We slid. Or we nudged. We nudged 1 fret over. Okay, let's get back to the Legos. You might recognize this shape. I hope you do by now. To orient ourselves, the green background is the fretboard. Up here is the nut somewhere. And way down here is the bridge. So 6th string, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. In fact, let's put a little legend here. All right? So now we notice that we have a span of 4, 3 spans of 3, a span of 4, and then that final span of 4, which is really a duplicate, a copy of what we had on the other E string. And that's why I took it off, because it's really redundant. The full shape can be represented by these 5 spans, a 4, a 3, a 3, a 3, and a 4. And remember what happened when we tried to move that shape to a different place on the fretboard, starting on a different string. So let's move our legend down so that as I move it, you can see what happens. So instead of starting with an A note on the 5th fret of the 6th string, we started down on the 12th fret of the 5th string. So 12, 13, 14, 15, right? So it's A and C. Just like up here, it was A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, right? Same notes, starting in a different position now, once again, on the 12th fret, 5th string, A, C, D, E, G. It'll continue, right? So to get A and C, there's our 4-span. D and E, there's our 3-span, and that sounded fine. G and then A again, the 12th fret and the 14th fret on the G string. But then when we went to move down to the 12th fret with the 2nd string, it didn't sound right. We had to slide it down. Well, why? Of course, A, C, D, E, G, A, C is on the 13th fret. We had to move it down, right? And then D is on the 15th fret. And if we had continued the last segment of the video, we would have found A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, and then E and G are back up here on 12 and 15 again. And then, of course, the repeat of that would come next, but it's back around at the top. So if you've already learned your various pentatonic shapes, this may look familiar to you, but it really is just a variation of that original shape. And the important thing to keep in mind is that it started here with a 4-span, then 3 3-spans, and then another 4-span. but we had to move this one. And we moved this one because that B string is special. It's going to slide. So here we are back at the starting point. The familiar shape that looks like a form 1 pentatonic, right? But it is a 4-span, 3 3-spans, a 4-span, and then that duplicate of the low E string that we see again on the high E string. Take that away as we did before, right? And remember, when we moved this one down, the B had to slide once we got to the B string. What if we were going to build so-called position 2, A, C, D, E, G, A, so it's going to start there on the 7th fret of the 4th string. So let's imagine that our 7th fret is right here, A, C, right? 7, 10 on the 4th string, then D, A, C, D is 7 on the 3rd string, E is 9 on the 3rd string. We get to the 2nd string, instead of keeping it lined up as we did before, we have to slide it down, right? Because A, C, D, E, G, that occurs on the 8th string, not the 7th string. So we slide down towards the bridge. A, C, D, E, G, A. Now we come to C again, and as we know, C is on the 8th fret of the 1st string. Now, the shape is going to wrap around. That means we have to repeat this again, right? So I take a red one, put it up here on the 6th string at the 8th fret, right? A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, C, D, repeating again. And then we would have our final 4-span of E, G. Well, where are the E and the G on the 5th fret? Well, they're on 7 and 10. So we started here, we went around, wrapped around to here. But what happened when we wrapped around? We basically repeated this, right? And then we had our final 4-span that would have been here, right? It doesn't look the same. What happened was we came along, we slid down, stayed there, and we slid back. Why did we slide back? Well, otherwise, we would have kept, if we had continued, we would have kept sliding. If we had an infinite number of strings, eventually, we would have just continued. But we have to always end up back where we started, because it's not an infinite in one direction. It wraps back around to the top of the fretboard again, so that we get back to the low E string, right? Because this one went here, and then we had to get up to here to line up again. A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, C, D, G, A, okay? So that means that in addition to sliding down with our pattern, when we get to the B string, we slide back up towards the nut when we get to that final 4-span, right? So let's take a look again at what happened on the 12th fret, right? When we started on the 5th string, let's do it up here just so that we're below the numbers. But now we're on the 12th fret, right? On the 5th string, A, C, D, E, G, A. We slide down for C, D. And then we need E, G. And of course, you know that E is on the 12th fret and G is on the 15th fret. So we slid down, then we immediately slid back up again. And this is the one that gets repeated. Okay, so it comes back here. And that creates what you may know as the form 3 pentatonic. Or is it form 4? 1, 2, 3. It's 4, form 4. Oh, see, I don't even remember the form numbers anymore. I just think about the same shape. And that shape is about to jump right out at you.
the shape, the magic shape that, well, before I show you that, here's where it's going to show up. Remember when we started on the 5th fret, right? A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, and then we repeated A, C again, right? Form 1, we took that away. Remember, we had to slide this one down because it was the B string, but we didn't slide it down. Why didn't we slide it down? Because this time, the B string occurs when we get to that second 4 span, which is the one that we would have slid back to the nut. So sliding back to the nut and sliding down to the bridge happened on the same string, so they canceled each other out. Had it not been for the fact that this occurred on the B string, we would have slid this 4 span up towards the nut. And that is the shape. That is the only shape you have to remember. A 4 span, a 3 span right under it on the same fret, another 3 span, a third 3 span, and then the final 4 span that is back 1 fret towards the nut. Remember that shape. That is the one pentatonic shape that you have to remember. All right, let's do one more, and then we'll get back to the guitar, because after all, this is a video about guitar, not about Legos. Here's the shape that you want to remember, the one shape, right? So let's build up another position, this time A minor pentatonic again, but we'll start on the 2nd fret of the G string. So we're kind of up in the open position area, right? So I have this down here for reference, and we'll move it up. So we start here, 2nd fret of that G string, A, C, so we're on 2 and 5. Then we get to the B string, and here, let's copy the whole thing up here as if we were gonna just put it here and see what we have to do to it, right? We get to the B string, we have to move down towards the bridge, right? A, C, D is on the 3rd fret, so now everything moves down. A, C, D, E on 3 and 5. G, A on 3 and 5. But then what we've got to do is take these and move them around. So we repeat what was on the high E string, back here on the low E string, A, C, D, E, G, A, 3, 5, right? And then G, A, C, D, then E, G, right? On the 2nd and the 5th. And once again, as I've been saying, if you already know all of your pentatonic shapes, this should look very familiar. But look how we just built it up from that one standard shape, right? So really, all you have to remember is the one shape here. That's your shape. The nut's up here, the bridge is down here, and you are using this shape. Whatever string you start on, continue around. When you get to the edge of the fretboard on the high E string, you're going to repeat whatever string that was up here on the low E string and continue with the pattern until you get to the end and you've used all 5 of these standard fret spans. Just always remember, this is the shape, that fourth one, that 4 span at the end, 4 span, 3, 3, 3, final 4 span, that one nudges up towards the nut. And of course, always remember that whenever you get to that B string, everything from there on out moves down. And from that, you can build any of the positions. All right, let's get back to the fretboard.
Now, there's something else I want to show you. We name these strings E, A, D, G, B, E because those are the notes that we tune the open strings to. That's how we refer to them, by those names. E, A, D, G, B, E. It seems like an odd jumble of letters. I remember when I first started learning, the mnemonic was, starting from the bottom, E, B, G, D, A, E. Every boy goes down an elevator. I think there are other mnemonics to remember that. We have the 2 E's. They cancel each other out. Well, they don't cancel each other out, but it's redundant. It's a repeat. So we have 5 distinct notes, E, A, D, G, B. Can't really spell anything with that. What about this B string? Remember, we nudged. We had to move up in order to make those patterns work. So if you were to start with an open B and move up 1 fret towards the bridge, where would you be? You'd be on a C. What if that string were called C instead of B? You would have the 5 unique strings E, A, D, G, C. What do those 5 letters spell if you mix them up? It's an anagram. Mix up the letters. E, A, G, D, C. Well, start with C, A, G, E, D. It spells caged. Let me show you why that's more than just an interesting coincidence. Because when you're playing pentatonics, it's going to sound pretty good over the chord progression. But your soloing will sound better if, in addition to the pentatonics, you can play the chord tones. And in order to pick out the chord tones, you kind of have to know what chord you're playing in that position. And corresponding to every one of the 5 positions where you can play this modified single pentatonic shape, there is a different chord shape from the caged chords. And you may have seen it listed and tried to memorize the correspondence. Let me show you an easy way to memorize it. This shape here, right? First one that we all start with. We're starting with our minor root, right? The first note under our index finger on that 6th string. And what's the name of that 6th string? We call that the E string. The E minor chord is the chord shape that goes with that one. You remember it because where you started was on the E string. Suppose you were starting up here on the 5th string, the 12th fret, right? On that A note. The name of that string is the A string. And when you're playing that pentatonic shape, that's the A minor chord shape from the caged chords. This works for all of them. Whichever string name you're starting on, that's the name of the chord shape that matches that pentatonic position. Now, what about the major pentatonics? Well, it works there too, but not necessarily in the way you think. Remember this shape? course you do, right? The first one we all learned. And if we wanted to play A major, we've learned that, oh, if we just move down and put our pinky there, right, and play it back here, that is an A major pentatonic scale in that position, right? Because our pinky is anchored on that A. Well, there's another A. This A is closest to the bridge, but there's an A here on that G string, right? What string? The G string? Well, you guessed it. It's the G shape that matches that position. What if we were starting up here on the 12th fret on the A string, and then we wanted to play the A major pentatonic instead of A minor, right? Put your pinky there. Okay? So we know we have an A under our pinky, but there's another A there. This is the A that's closest to the bridge. The A that's closest to the nut is here on the B string, which for now we're calling the C string, so it's going to be the C shape. The C chord shape, C major, is what you would play in that position. So basically you don't have to worry about the position numbers and how they correspond to the chord shapes. You can simply look at where your root note is that's closest to the nut, and whether you're playing minor pentatonic or major pentatonic, whichever root note is closest to the nut, the string name that you're on is the chord shape to play. That's the one that lives in that position. And once you know the chord that's there, you can start thinking of that chord shape overlaid in that position with your pentatonic scale that you're playing, and you can start to target the chord tones as you're soloing. There's a lot of power in that, and you only have to learn one pentatonic shape, because that's all there is.